Howdy neighbors, welcome back to my itty bitty little automotive channel. I just installed some Autometer gauges and a gauge pod, as well as a new stereo in my truck. And I had posted some pictures and people were commenting, asking kind of how I did it, what stereo I used and this and that. So here's the video to show you exactly what I put in and how I did it. Here are my gauges and the gauge pod that I put in. I used Autometer gauges and installed the transmission and water temperature gauge. Both the gauges and the pillar were available through LMR, and that's why I originally saw them, but I was able to find all three through Summit and they were a little bit cheaper. So I just ordered it through Summit and had it shipped here to the house. I did not want to put holes in my original trim pieces. So what I did was I took the original trim piece off and I mocked everything up, and then I pre-drilled the 3 holes that I actually used to mount this pod. Once I got it painted and everything, I was able to get it ready to install. The trickiest part for me was just running the wires. Again, I didn't want to cut holes in the original trim and force the wires behind it. I ran them down the inside of this gauge pod. As you can see, they're sticking out a little bit, so I need to kind of tidy this up because it's not on the inside, but that's okay. You can't see it when the door is closed, but you've got your power wire, your illumination wire, and then your ground wire for each one. So there's a total of 6 wires that come down. Now what I did was actually tapped in right here. This is a good ground. Check it to make sure, but I checked mine and I had a good ground off this piece of metal for the body structure. So I just tapped and put my ground wires right there. My power wire and my illumination wire are run into my fuse box. And as you can see, I used 2 of these little gizmos. You can get these at AutoZone, that's where I bought mine. You can also order them off of Summit if you'd like. I want to say they're about $6 a piece, so pretty cheap, but they allow you to install it and it's clean. You don't have to splice wires or anything. All you have to do is crimp your power wire to the existing wire, and they even have this little doodad on there for you. If you're going to use these little doodads in your fuse box, it's recommended that you use one of the fuses that is not connected to the ABS or the airbag system. There's tons of fuses in here, but there's only 3 fuses total that were 10 amp, and that's the max that this little fuse holder that I bought would handle. I used number 10 and 17. This one is number 18, and it is a 10 amp fuse. However, it's connected to the airbag, so don't use this one. And don't use the one that's underneath going horizontal. You want to use the one that's vertical. This vertical number 10 fuse, all it does is illumination, so that was perfect because that's all I needed it to do. And then the number 17 is for, let's see, this one says warning buzzer, chime, warning indicators, and gauges, tachometer, electronic transmission. So that's perfect too. So these 2 were the best choice for me in my application. The trickiest part of installing these was basically just putting the wires through the firewall. Now I kind of lucked out, and there was already a small hole in the firewall there down low where someone had run a wire for the stereo system through it. So I just snuck my other wires through, and I'll show you under the hood kind of how I cleaned it up and made it look decent and how I made it look presentable. For the water temperature, Autometer will supply you with the sending unit, or the temperature sending unit. All you have to do is remove your existing one and thread this one in. I used a little bit of that thread tape on the threads just to make sure it wouldn't leak or anything. Pro tip, don't get in a hurry like I did. Make sure you drain some of your coolant just down a little bit so that when you unscrew that temperature sensor, it doesn't drain all over the place and you don't make a big mess on your garage floor. So after I had that installed, I ran the wire just up and over, and then I actually followed one of the connections for the cruise control, and then I covered it with this stuff just to keep it clean. So it actually runs all the way over to here. And then from here, it dips down and goes through the firewall right there underneath the brake booster. This is my extra wire that I have to run down under the cab for my temperature sensor for the transmission. I just haven't done it yet because it's been 30 some odd degrees here in Texas. I think the cleanest way to do this is just to follow this cable down and then just kind of dip off over here to the sensor, but just try to keep it right on this cable. Maybe I'll put some of that whatever that plastic stuff is to coat it and cover it and protect it to go up. Here's my transmission temperature sending unit here. I pulled that bolt out and just threaded this in, and I just kind of neatly tucked my wire and ran it right next to the shifter cable all the way down, and then just jotted over. So nice and simple. This was actually really easy to get out. I went ahead and jacked the truck up on the driver's side so that it would minimize any leakage of transmission fluid. There wasn't much at all, so very simple. So as for the stereo, I just bought a Boss audio unit off of Amazon. This one is the 7-inch screen. They make a 9-inch and a 10, and when I looked at them in an actual store, the 9-inch screen was, I mean, it was really, really big, and I thought it was going to be way too big for this truck, so I opted to go with the 7-inch. For $300, the stereo does everything I need it to do. It's got Bluetooth, I can connect my phone, I put the little mic up here, and I can hook up my sub. It's got the 2 cables for your USB and your Android or Apple CarPlay. I use the Apple CarPlay. What else? It probably has features that I probably will never use, but it's perfect for my setup. I think it looks good in the truck. It fits. It's not overly done. One of the features that I actually really liked about this unit is this screen is adjustable. You can go up and down, and you can tilt it whichever direction you'd like, and then you can actually remove this entire screen from the unit. There's 2 little knobs on the back you just press, and you can pull this whole thing out. So there's my gauges, there's my stereo. Pretty easy installs, both of them. Take your time, solder your wires, don't just crimp everything. Do it right the first time and you won't have issues down the road. If you have other questions, leave a comment below or send me an email. I'm happy to help anybody out that's doing an install like this on their truck. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it as always, and stay hungry, stay foolish.